I also think it's really valuable getting on the phone. And I know that could be different for people, hard or difficult, but it really humanizes you and you can get a client on a phone. They will 10 times more remember you than somebody else. And you can, just talk to them and be friendly, be your own self. And then it kind of,
Yeah.
it's helped me like work with so many higher paying clients. Like I worked with Fox Entertainment because we got on the phone call and she was like, "Oh my God, this is like so fun." I'm like, "We could be best friends. I want to come to LA and hang out with you." And she was like, "Oh my God, if you come, just let me know." I'm like, "I will." So, like just turn into like a normal person. And
Yeah.
it's a way, I really think getting on a phone call is like the number one way to get clients.
This is your host, Dyutama, but you can call me DJ. And I love to inspire food photographers to dream. I spent 15 years as an architect studying buildings and constructing hospitals before taking the biggest leap of faith of my life, which was setting up a food styling and food photography business right from scratch. If you're a dreamer like me, wanting to start a new photography business or grow your existing food photography business, jump right into a world where I share practical, actionable strategies to improve your photography skills, to work with clients, make more money, all with a fearless mindset. This is the My Food Lens podcast, and we take you one step closer to your dreams. So let's go. Welcome to a hot, fiery, and mind-blowing episode on the My Food Lens podcast. You absolutely want to listen to this episode because today I have Sam Adler. Sam is a professionally trained pastry chef. She's a food photographer. She's a Saveur Blog Award winner, and she's a food blogger who is here to tell us all about how to make six figures in a food photography business. I absolutely love Sam because she has not only created a six-figure food photography business for herself, but she's aiming to go up to $1 million next year, a seven-figure food photography business. There are very few food photographers out there in the world, and I say in the world, and I say it very confidently, who talk about money, who talk about income, about their revenue streams, about their big dreams, their ambitions, and what they are doing to be able to bring money into their business as openly as Sam does. Today, we'll be talking all about numbers. We'll be talking all about what it takes to get high-paying clients. How do you know whether a project is right for you or not? How do you land a $20,000 project? What does it take, to be able to offer a quotation that actually works for you? What are the mistakes you should look out for? How do you negotiate with brands when they counter offer your fee? How do you increase your rates with loyal clients? And what are some small habits, yet big shifts that you can make to be able to start paving your way to a six-figure food photography business? There's no one better than Sam to tell us all about it. So let's get started. Hi, Sam, and welcome to My Food Lens podcast. What an absolute delight to have you here. I am so looking forward to our conversation because all this while, there's been this perception in the world that food photography may or may not be a profitable business. And there you are telling us that it can actually be $1 million business. We can have big dreams, big ambitions, and all we need to do is work for it. So I'm super excited to have you here and to open new ways of thinking for our audience that is going to tune in today. Welcome, Sam.
Oh, thank you so much. Thank you. I'm so excited for our conversation and to be here. I'm truly honored. Thank you.
And for you to be doing this right after your trip to Italy, I'm so grateful, for you to be fighting your jet lag, sitting here and talking to us, Sam.
Yeah, I'm so excited. I love talking about food photography and business and money and why it's important for you to really just stick to what you want out of your life. So I'm happy to be here.
Perfect. So Sam, tell us a little background for our listeners today. What kind of projects do you undertake? What are the clients? How long have you been a food photographer? A little snapshot to, for them to get to know you better.
Sure. So I started in late 2017. I took a couple of courses because I wanted to start my food blog. frostingandfettuccine.com. That is my food blog, and it's mostly baking. And I realized that if I wanted anyone to come to my site, then I had to have nice pictures. And then I had an old DSLR that I started on. It was like a Canon Rebel T3i, something super old. And I just kind of started learning how to use it on manual mode. I took a couple courses and a couple more. And then I realized, oh, wait, I really like this also. And then it was like kind of in the time of Instagram where people started doing sponsored work and everything like that. And so I kind of started out doing sponsored work. And then that kind of just like grew into, doing more sponsored work. And that kind of took over. And I had to do a little bit less on the blog. And then it kind of just grew into this thing that I never thought it could be. And I'm just really proud of it because now I do like 3 full-time things, or maybe 4 because I have kids. But I am a full-time food blogger, and I also run a full-time food photography business, and I also teach food photographers through my online courses how to grow their food photography business. So it's a lot of different hats, but I really love every part of it. I don't think I could let any of them kind of go. So I really love each part. The kinds of projects that I work on now, I actually stopped doing sponsored work a little over 2 years ago. I just found that sponsored work for me just like wasn't where it was at. It was fine financially. I just didn't really like working with clients who were really nitpicky about work. And I found that the sponsored work, when you had to post on Instagram, really just like wasn't for me. I just really enjoyed working freelance for clients, and I found that they had higher paying budgets. And so I kind of ventured out into that. I actually was signed on with an agent at the time. And I went through this whole rebrand, and I'm like, I just don't think I can do this anymore. And I like fired my agent. I'm like, I'm really sorry. It's not you, it's me. And I was like, I just don't want to do sponsored work anymore. And so it was really scary because I wasn't really sure what was going to happen. But I've since then had like my highest contract to date and my most like fulfilling jobs. So I'm taking it as a step in the right direction.
Mm-hmm.
And so now I primarily work with clients, helping them on their websites. And I'm doing a cookbook shoot in June, which I'm really excited about. So it's bigger projects and less clients, but I kind of like that because there are higher paying contracts, and then you're not working every single day on smaller contracts. So that was
I
it for
love
me.
that. I love that. I love 2 big things that really stood out for me right now from what you're saying is number one, you tried something and you tried it long enough to know that it didn't work for you, like the sponsored,
Right.
content that was just not working for you. You identified that because you did it enough. And somewhere it was not settling with your soul, right? And then the second thing that stood out for me, that you were not scared to pivot. You were not scared to say that, no, this doesn't work.
I was scared, but I did it anyway.
You were. Yes, exactly. And who isn't? Who is not scared? I mean, the thing is that you always work through your fear, and, victory is on the other side of fear, as they say, right? So you worked through that and you found this whole new way of working that, okay, this is the part of food photography that is not working for me right now. I'm going to pivot. I'm going to do something. And that worked out really well for you. Or it, like you said, you're taking one day at a time, you're putting one foot in front of the other and seeing how that works out. I think that's such a great start to our conversation because we always get into food photography with very set mindset, that this is how this is what we need to do. This is exactly how it should roll. And especially when we see people doing so much on social media, it impacts us and it influences us in a very different way. But to say that, okay, this is for me and this is not for me is equally important. So I love that. I want to ask you a little bit. You said that,
thank you,
that you are you are now focusing on fewer projects, but higher paying projects. And that's key. That's so critical for even keeping your sanity because it can get out of hand, really.
Yeah.
So tell me how and what is the best way? You mentioned about, getting in or having an agent. How do you get, or how can photographers find these high paying clients? Because that's also a common agony. They'll always come and say, no one wants to pay for photography. People only want to, get the cheapest photographer out there. So how can photographers find these high paying clients?
Firstly, I want to put this out there because I think a lot of people might be listening to this and being like, oh my God, she's about to drop something I do not know. you know everything. You do. I don't have a secret, I don't have anything that's going to be like, oh, you're not doing this, like our shortcut or anything like that. I think it's a lot of small things put together. I really believe that you have to have really great work. And so you have to be a little bit critical of your work and you have to niche down into the type of work that you're doing. I also believe that you have to share your work consistently over and over and over again so that you are able to be found. And I think that you also have to present yourself with confidence. And I think you have to present yourself as a professional. Because if you are on social media and you're like, hi, I'm a mom and I love palm trees, like that's really nice. But we need to know that you're a photographer that we're taking seriously. You need to share the jobs that you're having. And then it's just a matter of, making sure everything that you have, you're pitching the right way, you're pitching to the right clients, you're pitching about the things that they need. So not necessarily like, I just want to work with someone. Let me just, ask you if you want to work together, but really understanding that client, going into whatever it is, their website or whatever it is that you want to pitch to them and understanding where they have a need or where they have kind of like a gap that you can fill for them. And then it's approaching them in a way and building a reliance. And so it can be a really like a long game. And believe me, I did for 5 years. I worked with lower paying clients and everything like that. But I think it also comes down to asking for it. And I think a lot of people undervalue themselves or, don't ask for things or don't realize that they should be charging more. And like I said, it's a lot of little things. You have to have really beautiful work. You have to know how to pitch. You have to know what your worth is. You have to know how much you're supposed to be charging. Like it's just so many little things that have to kind of come together. So I don't think that there's like one specific way. And I think you also like have to be in it for a little bit. Like, you're not going to like be a food photographer for 6 months and be like, ta-da, I'm booking $30,000 contracts. Like you're not. And not to be mean, it's just that like you need to work up that hours that would make you an expert. And once you're seen as an expert, those contracts are going to come. So that is my long-winded answer. That might not be what everyone wants to hear, but
no, but
that's
it's
what
so,
it is. I don't
but I
have
think
any
that's
secret shortcut.
and that's the
I
biggest
don't have a
part.
sentence you can put in your pitch email that will work.
Yeah, I think that's the
like
biggest
there's
part
nothing like that.
There is no shortcut. And people kind of, they give it a year or two and then they want to give up. And that's the part.
Yeah.
If you are in it for the long haul, you're going to win. And that's the secret.
Yes. Yes. Like I didn't start making $20,000 on contracts until 2021. And so if you go 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, that's 5 years.
But tell me, Sam, how did you start to understand that? Like you mentioned that, okay, now you're working with high paying clients, but then there was a time when you were working with lower paying clients. How do you understand, identify, or recognize who falls in which category? How have you built that filter in yourself now?
Right. So I raise my rates every 6 months to a year. And I did that because I was consistently and constantly working on my photography. And so I was practicing literally every day. Like, I'm not even kidding, like every day. At that point, I had 2 kids, both of them were in school full time. Didn't really take off until about 2 years ago. And so, I just remember like, investing a lot of time into the craft and knowing and looking at my photos from a year ago and being like, okay, it's time to raise your prices. Okay, it's time to raise your prices. And kind of like when I got to like a threshold, so let's say I was working with a client, I remember some of my first contracts that I didn't even have contracts for. It was literally like, hey, in an email, like, will you do this? I'm like, yes. It was like $350 or something. And then like I got a contract for $500 and that was my base. I'm like, I'm not working for less than $500. And then I would get a contract for like $900. I'm like, that's my base. So that's what I'm going to go for. And it's not to say that I wouldn't take anything less now because everything is different. But, I raise my rates all the time. And I think it's also important to talk to people. It's important to I think this is more like in the sponsored content world. I think it's important to talk to people because there are a lot of brands who work with multiple, influencers or talent or whatever it is. And I remember talking to my friends and being like, I'm getting paid $350. What are you getting paid? And she was like, oh my God, they're paying me $500. I was like, oh my God, I'm asking for $500. So like it's important for you to talk to people who you're comfortable talking to. Like, I don't recommend you just like DMing someone and being like, how much did you get paid for that? Like, you will get ghosted. And that's really just like inappropriate. But if you have friends in the industry who are kind of like on the same level as you, like, you should be talking about money. Like, money is not taboo. Like, just because you make money from something and you made $500 doesn't mean that it's taking away from my $500. Like, that's not how this works. So talk to people, raise your rates, work on your craft.
And it's amazing that after raising your rates, you've attracted the clients who are willing to pay those rates. It's not like you've lost, like people have this fear, right? If I take my rates up, I'm not going to get any projects. People aren't going to hire me, but that's not how it turns out for you. It's the opposite.
No, it's the opposite. You might lose some clients, like you might lose some clients who you just won't be able to work for anymore. And I did, but that just means you have room now for clients who are higher paying. And like, I know that can sound like, oh, well, where are they? Well, you have to make room for that. You have to ask. And I really believe that if you are telling yourself that you can only work with lower paying clients, or you're only getting these jobs, those are the type of jobs that you're going to see coming into your atmosphere or whatever, because that's kind of like what you're attracting. If you're like, okay, well, I'm going to raise my rates right now and then go out there and tell clients that your rates are higher, like eventually you're going to win. So there's, like you can't just, if you're in the mindset of always, I can't find higher paying clients, you will never find a high paying client.
And how do you find these high paying clients? Do you find them? Do they reach out to you? Do you have an agent? And when you do, how do you like pitch to them, and how do you differentiate yourself, even though you might have a higher fee compared to another photographer reaching out to them? So where do you find them? Do you have someone helping you? And then when you reach out to them, what is that differentiator that you put out?
So a lot of clients come to me, which is really nice. I do have clients that, big clients that I was pitching for that kind of turned into longer term contracts because we worked together previously on other things. But I think I don't have an agent now. I actually had two over the last 4 years, and I fired them both because I was, not to be like, oh, whatever, but I was better at negotiating licensing and usage for my own than they were. And I literally was losing money having an agent. And I'm like, this is ridiculous. And so I had to let them go. But also, they weren't finding me anybody. And I was just constantly bringing them people. I'm like, this is ridiculous. So I think that the way that I pitch people now these days is that I'm making sure that I do it kind of two ways, actually. I do, like, the clients that I really want to work for, I will literally, go out and pitch, and not even pitch them right away. It's really more about building a relationship. And so like I'll start like commenting on their Instagram and start like sending them, messages, and they're like, oh my God, I love this. And like kind of just like working my way up until like it's been like a couple of months where like I feel like they can kind of be like, okay, we like know this person who obviously is like commenting on all of our stuff. And then I kind of would go in and like talk to them about stuff. But so I feel like it's a little bit harder to just cold pitch someone who doesn't even know who you are. And it's always like about building those relationships again. Like I think about it like being on a first date. Like you're not going to go into a first date and be like, will you marry me? Like, like you're not doing that. And so I feel like building relationships with brands and honestly, not even just brands, but like agencies and people. And like once you are working with one client or agent, they generally have more clients that might be fitting for you. And so I like to keep in touch with them and just kind of fill them in on what I'm doing and talk to them and kind of be like, oh, like, do you like, then you kind of find out if they have other brands, and just, it's like be a friend, like just be like, they're normal people, just be a friend. One time I walked up to an editor at a conference and I was like, hi, I'm Sam. Here's my business card. And that was 5 years ago. And she just emailed me recently to work on a job, which was, I actually turned down because it wasn't high enough paying, but, it was really interesting because I walked up to her at a conference and she remembered me. And, like not everyone just walks up to an editor and they're like, hey, here's my business card. So finding those clients, I really think is important to build a relationship. I think in-person networking is your best bet. That's my favorite way to find new clients. And then when I do, like I said, when I reach out to them, I really build that relationship first on like a human level, and then figure out how I can work with them after.
So definitely establishing the relation, getting them to know you before you, officially pitch. Those things are
Yeah.
important. But let's say that you're pitching to McDonald's, all right? And then there is another photographer who's pitching to McDonald's. I'm just making it up. So it's how do you show them that value that you have, even though you have higher prices, you can bring them something that someone else can't. So what is an advice that you can give to photographers out there to differentiate themselves in the, pitching phase?
A good question. It's hard to say, honestly. I would say the thing that would probably make me different is understanding basically their needs before, like, if somebody else, like understanding more of what they want than somebody else. So really looking at their website, looking at research, looking at their sales, what were their best sellers, what things did well for them on social media, what things didn't do well on social media, do they have new products coming out, asking them kind of like, what are your concerns for this year, what are your goals, just really just diving in to make sure that they can understand that you're not really there just to take photos. You're really there to help them build their own business. Because at the end of the day, we're all business owners. And so I think it's really important for you to not just always be focused on the money, even though obviously we always want money. But I think it's really smart to not be always focused on the money at first. And then just wow them with your skills.
Yeah, no, I love it because I think this is the key part that most people miss out when they pitch. And it's all about, being so institutional in the way they put themselves out there, and they'll talk all about their skills and themselves, and they kind of miss out on telling the brand how well they know the brand and how invested they are in making them succeed in, reaching their vision. So I feel like this is such a great answer because you don't have to work extra hard to differentiate yourself.
No, you don't.
You just have to do your homework.
You don't. I also think it's really valuable getting on the phone. And I know that could be different for people, hard or difficult, but it really humanizes you, and you can get a client on a phone. They will 10 times more remember you than somebody else. And you can, just talk to them and be friendly, be your own self. And then it kind of, it's helped me like work with so many higher paying clients. Like I worked with Fox Entertainment because we got on the phone call and she was like, oh my God, this is like so fun. I'm like, we could be best friends. I want to come to LA and hang out with you. And she was like, oh my God, if you let me know. I'm like, I will. So, like just turn into like a normal person. And it's a way, I really think getting on a phone call is like the number one way to get clients.
I would add to that it's a little bit different culturally. Like I live in a very different part of the world compared to you. So the Western and the Eastern world is very different. So in the Western world, I've definitely heard that people, especially in America, they respond really well to phone calls. But in Asia, it's less of a culture. And you would, first, if you call directly, that's not always the first go-to kind of a practice. But having said that, there's no problem in trying.
No, there's no problem in trying. Yes. And I think it's also important, like if you see something in the news about them or they came out with a new product and it's not even like a pitching, you're not even pitching, you just see something or you see something on Instagram, you could just send them a message and be like, hey, I saw your new product. I'm like, congratulations, I'm so happy for you. Like, or like, I can't wait to buy it. Or just like, not even like going in there with like, hey, will you pay me? It's more of like, hey, this is awesome. And they've seen that like you're paying attention to what they're doing. So
that's so important. You are paying attention. You are in their team. That's the key.
Yeah.
Perfect. Yes. Tell me, Sam, so let's say you did win the McDonald's project. All right. So then what are the things that you would think about when you are coming up with the proposal or for the fee, the quotation? What are some big ticket items that you would, I know that you're a huge advocate of really looking at the license and usage, in your fee. But other than that, what would be some other very big things that you would have to consider before you put the quotation together?
Yeah. Okay. So when I work with freelance clients, I have like a photographer fee, and that kind of includes a creative fee and the licensing and usage. And that creative fee is what the amount of money it takes for me to actually do the work. Without usage, without licensing, without ingredient cost or whatever else is adding on there, you have to know your bottom line expense. Like you have to know that like if I don't make $1,500 on this project, I am not profitable. You have to know your expenses, how much you're putting into your business, just everything. Because then at the end of the day, if you're doing the work and you're not making money, what is the point?
Yes.
So
you are a business.
So you're a business. So no matter how many times you get an email that says like, oh, can I get a reduced rate on a small business? I'm like, hi, I'm one person. There's nobody smaller than me. So yes,
I love
it's
it.
just me. So I get it. So no, you cannot have a discount. But yeah, so I would say really understanding your pricing, just alone of just how much it's going to cost for you. And then pricing and, how many photos they need. Obviously licensing usage, where they're being used, how they're being used. And, what else are we talking about? Like just,
in your photography. So this is
style.
all part of the photographer's fee.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah.
It's all part of the photographer's fee.
Right.
And yeah, that's pretty much it. You want to make sure that, you own the rights to the photos and you're getting paid a profitable amount.
And what would you account for in the creative fee? What would you think of?
So that's like pretty much everything that goes into it. So it's the time spent on the calls or emails with your client. It's time spent shopping for your props or your, groceries or whatever. It's everything that goes into actually making and then shooting, cleaning up, editing, post-production, sending, invoicing, everything.
Wow.
That's pretty much everything that goes into your creative fee. And then you add on your licensing and usage, and then you get your photographer's fee, and then that's your whole proposal.
And when you send out your quotation to your clients, you do break it down into these 3 categories?
Yes, I do.
Okay.
I do, because I break down the creative fee just like for the amount of days. Like, for example, I just shot a website in May, and they had, I'm trying to think, I had 11 pies, 5 cookie recipes, and 21 sets of decorated cookies. And so I had to look at the whole list and be like, how long is this going to take me? And so I gave them actually a day rate of $2,500, and I said, this is going to take me 5 days at $2,500. I didn't charge them for licensing because they're a small mom and pop shop. So like they're using it for their organic website and their social media, which I was like super happy to do, because licensing there's no one size fits all. And yeah, that's how I broke it down. I broke it down for, 2,500 times 5. And yeah, no, with the licensing usage, there was 0. And total was 12,500, something like that.
Oh, wow. Yeah. Wow. For a small brand to be willing to pay that is...
You know what? Some people just have money. That's just what it is.
Yeah.
Some people just have money. And I think this, whatever it was, they just had money, and they found me because I'm local, and they needed somebody to drop off their stuff with, and they couldn't ship it. And so that's like another really great value thing. Like, find people who are local. Local people like local people. So I really, really push you to go local. And they just like had money, and I was like, okay.
Yeah.
That's why you can't just be like, oh my God, $12,000 sounds like so much money. Let me just do it for 6, because they had money.
Yeah, and they
you gotta
found
ask for it.
Yeah, and they found you. And so I just have to tell my listeners that I'm talking to you on a video call right now, and I can see the money magnet right behind on your. Yes, it's a magnet with a dollar. With
$100.
$100.
$1,000.
Yeah, it's $1,000 magnet. It's sticking right behind her, and there's no doubt why clients, such clients magnet. Find you. Yes, you are a money magnet,
and the more you tell yourself, remind yourself every single day that you're a money magnet.
I love it. Oh my God, I just absolutely love it. Tell me, Sam, what are some? So, I love how you broke down the fee into 3 different categories, and how you break it down, not only for yourself, but how you present it to the client. It gives them so much more clarity on what is in the process and why they should even be paying $2,500 a day, because there's so much that goes into it.
What are some mistakes that you see, or some things that photographers miss out when they are preparing these quotations, or, you can call them pricing mistakes that they make, something where they, they probably didn't account for that, and that was a missed opportunity. What would be some of those things?
So I think you have to not underestimate how much time something is going to take you. Because a lot of times we're just like, oh, this is going to take me like 20 minutes to just go somewhere and pick up groceries. An hour and a half later, you're like you didn't even get what you needed. And so like, I think it's really important to not underestimate how much something takes you. And like I said, understanding how much you need to be charging to be making a profit. Don't just throw out a number because you just like decide that like, I just feel like charging this amount. Unless it's like a really high number and you're like, oh my God, they're never going to go for this. And then they say yes. But I'm like, when you're really creating it, like you have to know your bottom line. And then licensing and usage, not charging enough or not charging anything at all. That's a big one. And then also not reading our contracts and making sure that they're not putting something in there that, you're signing your photos away or something that you're giving away that you don't realize. Because that could be a big thing. And like, maybe it sounds scary, but you have to understand how to read your contracts. That you're not signing your life away.
And we talk about licensing and usage so much on this podcast, but
I'm so glad, because nobody talked about it when I was learning, and like it was crazy. Nobody talked about it,
but
we all need to know.
The reason I brought it up was because in many parts of the world, it's not a thing. It's not part of professional practice. It's not a discussion on the table. It's something that's never part of the contract, and the clients are like absolutely ignorant about it, and the market has no place for it yet. So it's so different in different parts of the world, but I always love to talk about it. I always love my guests to talk about it. However, I also love that you said that there are other things that also photographers can be mindful of when they are preparing the quotations, whether or not licensing is part of the discussion yet with clients or not. But there are other things that they can definitely look out for and make sure their quotation is up to the value of the project and what they deserve to be paid for it. So thank you for that.
Sure.
Tell me one thing, Sam. You said that there were projects that were just, you felt like, you were charging $350 and your friend was charging $500. And so you knew that, you were kind of undercharging. But what if you don't have that friend? And what if you don't know what someone else is getting paid, or whether you've charged too much, too less? What are some indicators that, over your vast experience now you have understood that, okay, here are some indicators I can look out for. This means that I was undercharging, and this means that, maybe my rates are a bit high. So what are those, one or two indicators that you would, suggest our photographers to kind of always watch out for?
Yes. If you are getting too many yeses and people are saying yes and you're getting too many jobs, it's time to raise your rate. You need to be getting no's. You just like, that's just the way that it is. Every time I get too many yeses, I'm like, wow, my rates are way too low. And so that's a big thing for me. Another thing is if I'm finished doing a job and I'm like, this wasn't worth it, I'm like, oh my God, like next time a job like this comes through, you have to raise your rates. That's another one. And then when it comes to overcharging, this is a little bit trickier because sometimes you just like don't know until the client tells you that it was too expensive. Like, for example, I had done a shoot that I literally forgot about maybe a long time, maybe in 2021. And about 3 months ago, I got an email from the agent who I had worked with, and they were like, "Oh, Sam, you made this carrot cake for us. We wanted to know how much it would be to, license the photo perpetually, and the recipe perpetually." And I was like, "Okay." I realized it was a big brand, and I was like, they had a lot of money. From what I worked with them 3 years ago, and I charged them like $3,000 for like a couple photos and a recipe. And at that time, like, I mean, still now, it's still a pretty solid, decent job. And I was like, okay, I looked it up on, the places that I look for licensing, which we can talk about in a minute. And it was like around $5,000. And I was like, $5,000. I also didn't really so much care because I was like, okay, well, this is just like free money. So like, if it comes in, that's great. And if it doesn't, like, okay, whatever. And then they were like, they didn't get back to me. And a week later, I was like, hey, can you give me an update? They're like, oh, it was too expensive. I'm like, okay. And then I was like, well, if you don't want it for perpetual and you want it for 8 years, 5 years, I can do it for 2,500. And they just completely ghosted me. And I'm like, yeah,
Oh.
like now you know.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
Yeah, so like that's kind of harder because you just like don't know.
Mm-hmm.
You'll usually just like kind of get ghosted or like, but you have to ask. Like you have to follow up and ask
Yeah.
because like unless you ask, you just like don't know.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, but you know what? For me, I know how much money they could have made with that photo, and so I'm not upset that they didn't say no to $5,000 because if I had let it go for $1,500, I'd be pissed.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
Yeah.
yeah, that's great for $1,500, but it doesn't make me feel good. And like I don't think like I don't want to make that money with that weird bad energy. Like no thanks.
Yeah.
So
So yeah, it reminds me of a project that I had. I'd worked for a client and even though, Singapore is a bit in between no license and yes license. So I'm a very
interesting.
like pro license. I always educate my clients and I always put that fee into my contracts. And one of the clients that I had, they initially only licensed their photos for websites and social media. All right. So I'm like, okay, fine. The fee was very different. And then they came back and they said, now we are going on a food delivery app. And they wanted to start using their photos on the food delivery app. Now they're one of the top brands in Singapore. And they're already like really hot, hot, hot. I knew that the moment they would get on that delivery app, it's going to be like minting money.
Yeah.
All right. So at that time, I was maybe in my first or second year of business. So I was still quite a newbie, a bit shaky, not very confident. And still I went and I think I told them that fine. They had asked for 3 photos. And I said, fine, it will be $500 a photo for the license for 1 year or for the usage on delivery apps. They said no.
Oh.
I'm pretty sure they have made thousands of dollars worth of money through that delivery app, having their, food on there. And they were not willing to pay $1,500. They still use my photos. I still see them on billboards. I still see them everywhere, but they would not pay $500. So I'm like, you will find all sorts of clients. So it just reminded me of this story.
Yeah.
It's nothing. $500 was
That's
nothing.
great. I feel like we should have like a thread or something. We should have like a thread or something that like starts with like they said no and like tell everyone like what they're because a lot of people share like they said yes, or I have this or I have that. And like but like what about the ones that they said no to? Like how do we talk about that?
And sometimes I feel like it probably was not about the $500. I feel like it was just that they just didn't want to, they thought they had paid me already for a service and that should have covered everything. And for them to be me charging more, what was, stay way out of line.
So, which is crazy.
So I think, overcharging is a thing and undercharging is most definitely a very common thing. But, when you do have all these high paying clients, Sam, how do you find your joy and how do you still nurture your creativity? Do you feel like, does money become the focus or is the joy still the focus? I think that's a constant battle. What do you think?
It is. I also agree. I agree with you. I think it can be a constant battle. I really grew my blog a lot in the last couple of years. And for me, that was literally just like a push for money. That was like, I just want to make money from this blog. And I know that the people who are coming to my blog, they're not coming because of course, they want to see pretty photos, but they just need to get the recipe. That is their intent, to get the recipe. And so they don't necessarily care how styled my photos are. They want to see that their picture or their recipe is going to come out like my picture. And so for me, with my blog, I just like went like this. I was like, let's go, let's go, let's go. There was like very minimal styling. And if there was styling, then like it just maybe wasn't even that good. Like I really just like kind of rushed through it. And that's kind of how I still view my blog a little bit because it's just really, I just want to get stuff up there, but that's like a different part of my business. But I think it's really important to make time for creative play. And it's something that I teach in my courses to go on artist dates that I learned from Julia Cameron. She wrote this book, The Artist Way. Highly, highly recommend. Have you read it? It's so good. I really love it. It's like a 12-week course and it just really teaches you how to kind of rediscover your creativity as an artist in any way, in any kind of artist. Like you could be a singer, you could be like, musician, you can be like a literal artist. Like it's really, really awesome. And she talks about going on artist dates, and that's really just a way for you to connect with your creativity. And it doesn't necessarily have to be like you shooting something or whatever. Like it could be like a walk in nature, like, just something that whatever like speaks to you about kind of building that back up. And so I found for me sometimes, even if I only had like 20 minutes, I would like go into Target and like look at all the colorful pens. And I'm like, for me, that was like building up my creativity, which like sounds silly, but like me just like looking at all the colors, and I was like, oh. And so that just like helps just kind of fitting in like artist dates. Like one time I did a ceramics class just like by myself, which was really cool. And then in terms of shooting, like I think it's really, really nice. I have like a like folder on my phone where like I keep color inspiration. And so anytime like I want to kind of do a shoot, I like go back into that folder, and anything that inspires me I find from social media, or maybe just a picture that I'm a tree that I'm out and I'm like, oh, this composition is super cool. I'll come back and then like really like set a time to kind of make that time for myself. But I really try to make that time for myself where there is no outcome, and it doesn't have to go on social media. It doesn't have to go on my portfolio. It doesn't have to go on the blog. Literally just there for me to do what I want to do. So I think that's really important.
And I think what's important is carving out that time. Like you have to be very mindful. I feel like you have to be very mindful that when you are pursuing client projects, then you are a business, operate as a business, know what you're looking for out of that project, but then also remind yourself that you are an artist at the end of the day, and, and nurture that joy, because of which you started the business in the first place. So,
because if you're not enjoying it anymore, what is the point?
Yeah.
So, and a lot of it's really interesting because like after I've had done a lot of those shoots, that were just like solely for my own purpose and just whatever, they end up being my favorite and best shoots, and the ones that clients come to me and say, we want something like this. Which is like it doesn't happen by accident, like it's because that is you putting in your best work, because there's no outcome and there's nobody to say anything about. And then those are the ones that get the most traction.
Absolutely. So I know that when we started the conversation, Sam, you said that you have, you've pivoted, you've shifted, you've learned your lessons, you've made, changes in the way you have operated as a food photographer, the way you've built your business. And from what I saw recently on your Italy trip was like so inspiring. I feel like not many photographers speak, one, about money so openly. And
I love money.
And secondly, not many people have grown to a point where you are today. This idea of being a starving artist is so common. I mean, we're talking about books, the Big Magic by Elizabeth Gilbert. She always talks about pain and misery and how that brings out. Yeah. Oh, yeah. This is one of my favorite books. And I feel like we kind of need to break away from that mindset. And, just watching you and seeing, everything that you shared, especially during this trip that I saw, was coming from a place of, you can think big. So I just want to do a very quick trajectory for our listeners. Also, things don't grow overnight. You have worked your way up there over the past, almost a decade now. So tell us a little bit about what this trajectory looked like. Like, for example, the first 2 years, you were making maybe $10,000 a year. And then the next, then the 5 years after that was maybe a little bit more. So if you can just show us how your business in terms of finances has grown, maybe it'll be quite uplifting and inspiring for our listeners.
Yeah, sure. So I just want to point out that I do have, like I said, I run my blog and I run my courses and I run my food photography business. All of them right now are currently on track to make me over 6 figures this year. And I had worked with my business coach that's why I went to Italy, to work with her on a couple of VIP days, which was just me and her. And I joined her mastermind, so that I can make $1 million in 2025. So, it's really interesting I used to be in the mindset of like, you have to keep everything to yourself, like, or else it wasn't going to happen. when they say like make a wish, but like don't tell anyone or else it's not going to come true. Like it is the total opposite. You need to shove it down people's throats and really believe it before it can come true.
Yeah.
But okay, let's go back. 2017, I made no money. I spent money because I started in November. 2018, I probably made maybe $8,000 to $10,000. At the end of 2018, I won a Saveur Blog Award, which was really awesome. It was Best Food Instagram, and that was really just like one of the best things ever because that really helped me get my name out there and it helped me get new jobs. And then I started working with food.com and I was shooting recipes for them, but they sent me the recipes. I was making about $7,000 a month from them, which was really awesome. But I was shooting 20 recipes per month and I was exhausted.
Yeah.
I couldn't do anything else. It was exhausting. And like my blog I didn't do anything on my blog, nothing like that. And that was for like 6 to 7 months. So I don't even know what that is. And then I probably made whatever that was, 2019 is probably when I was making more money, like maybe 50 to 60. And then at the end of 2019, I opened up my first mastermind program, which was like 6 weeks long. I made $20,000 on it, my first launch, which was like wild and amazing. And I'm still friends with some of the people that were in it. And I actually have someone in my inner circle, which is my group year-long coaching program, who is in it. So like they've grown too. And it's just like really cool to see that. And then 2020, COVID year. 2020 was interesting. I think I had hit 6 figures in 2020. And then I think I hit maybe a little over 6 figures, like maybe 110. Because at that point I had run my mastermind a couple of times. And then it was 2021. In 2021, I made $300,000. It was wild. It was wild. Between my courses, because so many people were home and the blog, I was on an ad network, so that was bringing me in some money, maybe like $800 a month, nothing like too crazy. But then I was working with a lot of clients, like a lot of sponsored work clients. I didn't really, and maybe one freelance client here and there, but I was working with a lot of sponsors. And so that was really interesting, a really good year. And that was the year I made 6 figures in just food photography, which was pretty awesome.
Yeah.
2022, I did about 150 for the year. When everyone started going back to work and things like that, online courses kind of took a hit. And I had a coach at that time, not the one I'm with now, but and he was just like, it was fine, but he was just telling me that it was all normal and everything. And then we hosted a retreat in Italy with my friend Roberta, who is amazing. And so that was kind of part of it, but I made 150 that year. And it was really hard, to be honest, to go from making $300,000 to going to 150. And I know you're like, oh, like 6 figures. Like, yes, I still need 6 figures. And I was really grateful for that. And I'm not saying anything like boo hoo, but you always think like, oh, your trajectory is always going up, right? But it's not how that works. Like it's going to go up and then it's going to come back down and then it's going to go up. And then 2023, I had a baby and I took off literally, I don't know, a lot of time, 6 months, 8 months, and I made $111,000, but I literally did not work for 7 months. So like that was really cool to see. And I wasn't like upset that I made any less than I did in years previously, because I literally was on the couch for 3 months when I first got pregnant, because I was just like, I was not feeling great. And then I had a baby 6 months later, and my blog really sustained my business, and it took off when I got pregnant and had my 3rd kid, which was really great. And then at the end of 2023, I worked with a client on redoing their website. It was like a $26,000 contract, which was great because I had just had a baby and I was like, oh my God, how am I getting back into work? And it was a referral, so they came to me. So it was really nice. And now we're in 2024 and I'm like projecting, like, I don't even know, I have to figure it out, but I'm hoping like between 4 and 5. So success does not look like a straight line. It really doesn't.
Yeah.
It's really up and down. And 2020, 2021 were my highest years. And then, we're just gonna kind of see what this year brings.
And
So
business is not a straight line, and food photography isn't either.
No.
So what I would love our listeners to take away is that you've not just tapped into commercial clients or, food photography as a photography job as only, but you've diversified through your blog, through your courses, and through your mastermind. So you have a lot of different avenues. And what I love about it is some of these avenues boomed when the pandemic hit. And then the other avenues kind of took a backseat. But now that COVID is over, the other avenues might have boomed even more.
Exactly.
And so the absolute benefit of diversification is that you always have one machine rolling when the other one might be, paused for a while for whatever reasons. Now we've learned that from COVID. So I really want to ask you about your blog, Sam, because a lot of our listeners are food bloggers as well. And so for you to be a mom and to still be making that amount of money, the whole idea of this podcast episode is how to make more money without killing yourself, like working so hard, make more money, by working a bit less. And these are all these small, simple things. So tell me a little bit about how your blog made money while you were being the new mom. So that was part one of our conversation with Sam. And I'm pretty sure that your mind is buzzing, that you are buzzing, not just with inspiration, but also so much knowledge, right from understanding that, like all other businesses, a food photography business will take time as well, but also knowing that it's all possible that one day you can have 6 figures and you can also have 7 figures in your income, your revenue stream, but also knowing that, what is it that you can offer in addition to just commercial photography services that can start bringing in more revenue into your business, so that at no point in time are you at 0 or 10,000 or a low point. You always want to create that recurring income. You also know how to identify clients that are meant for you and clients that are not meant for you, and to not have that fear or to work through fear even when you want to try something new or you feel like there is something else in the business that is worth giving a shot. So much good information and so many lessons learned. I can't wait for you to tune into part 2, because that will blow your mind. All right. With that, if you have any questions, you know where to find me. Email me at hello@myfoodlens.com or DM me on Instagram at Gitama_myfoodlens. I'll see you next week with another episode. Until then, bye-bye.